I fear no man. But that thing, it scares me.
No, I ain't talking about that freak, alright? He's not here, is he? How do I get this fucking thing off?
One shudders to imagine what inhuman thoughts lie behind that mask. What dreams of chronic and sustained cruelty.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just witnessed something that none of us ever thought we would ever see. Hollow Knight Silksong is here. The One Piece is real. Can we get much higher? A game that nobody thought we would ever be getting after years of radio silence and clown memes that are now reserved for people clamoring for Half-Life 3 and Bloodborne Remastered.
Fuck!
But after a long wait, it's finally here. A sequel to one of the greatest indie games ever made. Announced out of nowhere and kinda awkwardly if we're being honest. And ladies and gentlemen, it has broken the industry, both literally and figuratively. When was the last time a video game was so popular that it crashed every storefront for at least an hour?
No.
And it's also been the recipient of the Baldur's Gate 3 treatment, where devs are actually bitching about a great game actually making things worse for everyone else. No, only charging $20 for a game is actually bad. Why?
Hell if I know.
I think the release of Hollow Knight Silksong is one of the most promising and feel-good stories of 2025, and I don't think we're putting enough emphasis on just how big of a moment this actually is. Because this is the moment where the indie scene just stood up, whipped their dick out on the table, and everyone collectively acknowledged,
That's quite big.
if you haven't been paying attention for the last 2 years, if you just make a great game, you can attract a strong enough following to where your next game can end up becoming the indie version of GTA 6, where devs are delaying their games to get away from you. Feel real bad for Hell Is Us though.
New contact, high tonnage.
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
But all of this wouldn't mean anything if Silksong wasn't a great game, which it absolutely is. While I don't think it's as great as the original, Silksong takes the core aspects of Hollow Knight and builds on it, adding new mechanics, more customization, and just makes an overall badass sequel that can stand toe-to-toe with the original on most of its aspects. But I've wasted enough time leading you in. Why exactly is Silksong having the profound effect that it is, and how does it live up to the expectations that its predecessors set? Well, let's go platforming. So strap in, boys and girls, and let's get down to business. So if you're gonna take anything out of this, let it be this. Indie has won. Like the indie AA space in 2025 has won. Completely and utterly. Ring the bell, throw in the towel, it's over. 2025 has been dominated by smaller games from smaller studios. I have never seen anything like the ass whooping it's putting on AAA, and I think Silksong just cemented its takeover. In many ways, Hollow Knight was one of the founding fathers of indie games that were able to catch widespread mainstream attention, and it laid the groundwork for people to go, hey, you should start paying attention to these smaller guys. So to see Hollow Knight come back at a time where its industry influence is in full force and finally release its long-awaited sequel to such fanfare, it's like Master Shifu coming back at the end of Kung Fu Panda 2 to help in the fight. It's like everybody is here. You can no longer play around with us. I mean, look at these player counts on Steam. For a Metroidvania, 3.2 million copies sold in 2 weeks, and that's not even counting the players on Game Pass. And in an industry where $70 is the new norm for big games, luckily $80 was run out the door for now. Thanks, Obsidian.
Get what you fucking deserve!
Hollow Knight Silksong is only $20, and Silksong is not a short game. Like, I put like 25 to 30 hours into it, and I still have more to do when it comes to new side content. That's value. Can we all agree that that's an incredible deal? It's so incredible that, some indie devs are worried it may actually negatively affect their games.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Now, if you're an indie dev and you're upset that Silksong was announced so last minute near your game, I mean, I can kind of understand that. It's like, bro, you couldn't give us like a better heads up here? You're like the GTA of indie games. You're gonna crush us. Now, Team Cherry isn't obligated to give you long-term notice or any notice at all, but I can at least understand if you're a little upset. However, if you're upset that Silksong is only $20, I'm sorry, but that's idiotic. Anybody who's making the argument that a good game shouldn't be cheaper looks like a fool. And I'm going to be completely honest here, and this might anger some people. The devs who are complaining about this probably don't have a game that's worth playing in the first place. Nobody has ever said, I'm only gonna buy indie games $20 and under because Silksong was that much of a value and everything else can't top this. This isn't AAA where every game is $70 and you gotta choose which game to spend your money on, otherwise your bank account will crater out. Indie games are way cheaper, and that's precisely what draws somebody in to take a chance on it, because it's not that much of a financial commitment. And you may find something special, like a Hollow Knight, or a Stardew Valley, or an Undertale. As long as you price your game accordingly with what you think is fair, then you won't have a problem. Honestly, I think every dev knows this, because you never see developers of good games come out against stuff like this. You know why? Because they're confident their game can actually stand out. The Oblivion remaster was shadow dropped right next to Expedition 33. Did you hear Sandfall say anything? No, because they knew they had a masterpiece on their hands. You want a better example? Hades 2, the full 1.0 launch as of the time of recording, is releasing in a few days. In the same month as Silksong. Early access right now is $30. Do you think Supergiant is concerned about this? No, because that game is gonna be great. You see what I mean by this? Now, I want to be clear, I'm not bashing the guy asking about pricing because that seems like a genuine question. I'm more so talking about any dev who's mad at this. But the launch of Silksong is one thing. What actually matters is the game good or not? And, well, you already know the answer. So Silksong, as you may already know, was supposed to be a DLC for the original game, but it ballooned up to a real sequel. And if you could say one thing about it, Christ on a cracker, this game is hard. If you play Hollow Knight Silksong, your asshole is gonna eventually get caved in. No doubt you've already heard the discourse around this game being hard, with a decent amount of people saying it's too hard, and this is mostly because bosses and some regular enemies will now deal 2 mask damage to you instead of 1, like in the first game. Now, I've seen people really harp on this fact, like every enemy does 2 mask damage, and that's not entirely accurate. Not every enemy is going to deal 2 mask damage. About 75% of them do 1. It's mostly enemies that have attacks like a spinning blade or an enemy doing the monkey. If a guy runs into you, it's still 1 mask. This also goes for terrain. If you land on thorns, 1 mask. If you land on a cog, buzzsaws, a bunch of killer sandworms, hey, I didn't know I was on Blingeel again. That's when you get 2 mask damage. And another key difference from the first game is that in order to heal, you need to build up your silk completely, but when you heal or bind, it heals 3 masks. Whereas in the first game, if you had any essence, you could heal for as many as you're able to with the essence that you had. In the beginning, I didn't really like this, but it grew on me in the end because of the trade-off of more masks being healed. But that also means that unless you've hit enough guys, well, you can just put your head between your legs and kiss your ass goodbye. Honestly, unlike what a lot of people are saying, I don't have a problem with the difficulty. As a developer, if you want to make a harder game because this is a Souls-like, that's fine. However, where I start to have a problem is with the runbacks. Now, allow me to explain. In an era where Souls games finally got the memo to have sufficient checkpoints in key places so you don't have to waste your time on runbacks, I really think Team Cherry should have taken notice of this, because the runbacks can be extremely frustrating, especially with enemy placement. Not on its own, but when you combine it with enemies that can deal double damage, you see how somebody might want to throw their controller out the window because this motherfucker. And it's made even worse when for some reason early in the game, most of the benches you actually have to buy with rosaries, which by the way are a literal 50-50 shot to get from enemies because they either drop that or shards to make tools. So if you happen to keep dying in an area where you don't have a map or a bench because you can't afford it, with enemies that don't drop rosaries and can potentially do double damage, welcome to the 9th layer of hell. When you combine all of them together, it can make for some really frustrating moments, and I'd be lying if I said there weren't times in this game where I was just not having fun. Now eventually I got good and was able to overcome this stuff, even if it was the goddamn Conductor's Melody Gauntlet which took a piece of my soul.
What the fuck?
But those moments of frustration are far overshadowed by everything else in this game that makes the difficulty bearable. Even more so when the arsenal is this expanded. There's so many more tools in Silksong, you can actually create different types of builds with it, unlike the first game where everybody had the same kit to work with. And my god, can I just say, Hornet moves like a dream. The movement in Silksong is so fluid and it feels godlike. Probably the best movement in any side-scroller I've ever played, and that's counting Mega Man Zero. Instead of a basic dash, you now have a dash into a sprint, and this right here is one of the most fun parts of Silksong, when you're just sprinting through an area and vaulting to a platform. I mean, look at this high jump. Look at how clean that clearance is. Tell me that doesn't make you feel like God's chosen bug. Sprint just feels incredible to use. Shit. Along with everything else returning from the first game, you can also equip different abilities and perks with different crests. They're divided into 3 different types. Red, which are extra tools you can use like throwing knives and bombs. Blue, which provide passive defense and healing skills. And yellow, which are used for mainly resource gathering and navigation. This is where the compass is, which is all that matters. And every crest has some sort of inherent ability, like the Reaper crest, which gives you the regular down pogo, but also allows you to siphon some silk from enemies after healing, which, shut up and take my money. As you progress through your crest, you can unlock up to 2 of each color skill, and some of these skills really kick ass. You can create an AoE blast when you heal, you can create a saw slash when you glide or double jump, you can apply burn to your weapon, you can speed up healing. Like, there's a lot of different skills you can experiment with here. This along with new main abilities like the harpoon, which as you've seen in the trailer, attaches to hooks or enemies and allows you to bounce off them, and you also have the Mary Poppins glide, my beloved. And since this is Hornet, you also get the abilities that killed you in the first game, like the Silk Spear and the Thread Storm.
What the hell is that?
The default pogo kinda sucks, but when you get the Reaper crest, you get the basic down attack, and all's right with the world. All of this stuff I'm explaining to you is just what I found. As I said, there's more side content I haven't done that could potentially lead to more skills and abilities, and there's just so many ways to handle situations in Silksong, and that's what makes this game so great, and what balances out the increased difficulty. In every way, the gameplay in Silksong is an upgrade from Hollow Knight, and even though you might bang your head against the wall, you're gonna feel good doing it. But of course, it wouldn't be Hollow Knight without an incredible world to explore and platform all over. Guess what, guys? Pharloom is exactly that. While I don't think it's as great as Hollow Nest, Pharloom still gives you this sense of wonder and intrigue.
Oh, fuck.
A kingdom that's not completely deserted, but is definitely falling apart at the seams because of some kind of corruption from the silk of its god. Unless you're this guy.
Faridula simanet, doni poina volinet, pina sans mi manisette, dana fond sur le banc.
Yo, why does this slap so hard? The soundtrack in these areas are still gold, especially when you get to the Citadel. Oh my god, I didn't think the City of Tears could be topped, but as soon as you walk into the Citadel, you feel something almost holy. The theme in the choral chambers especially is just, it's perfect. But that's how Pharloom looks and feels. What really matters is how these levels are designed. F***ing amazingly, that's how. Platforming in Hollow Knight is still one of the most satisfying things you can feel. Like I said earlier, the movement just feels so fluid, and being in a constant flow of running and jumping has never felt so good, especially now that Hornet can grab onto ledges and pull herself up. And since it's a Metroidvania, you know this world is interconnected, and it still hits you like a brick when you loop back into areas you've already been to. Look, there's a reason why we love stuff like this in games like Dark Souls. It makes the world feel real. And you tell me it doesn't feel great when you're in Shellwood and you take a long-ass elevator down, and all of a sudden you wind up back in Bone Bottom. Tell me that doesn't feel good. Ah, home sweet home. Oh shit! But what I think Pharloom does the best is that the design itself does a great job of testing how you use your platform abilities. It's not just putting a situation in where you need to use a skill, it's adding different aspects to that situation that make it more of a skill check for your all-around ability. Like in the Cogwork core, instead of harpooning onto hooks, you have to harpoon, jump over rotating cogs, and then hook back on. The blasted steps have wind gusts that can either help or hinder your gliding ability, so you have to pick what direction to use it in. The slab takes away all your gear, and instead of a gauntlet where you have to punch barehanded and do no damage, you have panels with rotating buzzsaws that you have to catch enemies in. Both Mount Fei and the Sands of Karak are full platforming speed runs that make you utilize a couple of different skills, and they're all fun as hell. I love how they implemented all of this, and it makes Silksong a true test of skill rather than just, oh, you have a wide gap here, time to power up. Oh god! It adds to the already pretty high difficulty, but getting through them makes you feel like an absolute champ, sometimes even more so than the first game. But before you could do that, you're blind, and the search for the maps always come first when you're going to an area for the first time, and it makes you wonder, how do you replace the iconic hum from Cornifer? I'll tell you how. Shadow! Say hello to your new map giver, Chakra, a warrior bug searching for his master that will actually fight enemies that come near him.
That's why he's the GOAT!
I don't know anything else about him, and I don't need to. This guy's great. Follow the rings, boys. And if all that wasn't enough for you, Silksong has now introduced side quests known as wishes, which are divided into hunt, gather, wayfarer, and donate. They're not complicated side quests. It's usually kill enemies and retrieve something off of them, collect some flowers, find this lost boy who's also a dumbass and can't find his way home, or donate some rosaries or shards, which I don't do because it's my money and I need it now. It's a nice way to add more content in the game, and apparently if you do all the wishes, you get something cool in the end. Not gonna spoil it, even though some of you may have already heard about it. Have I gotten it? No, because I'm not doing all this right now.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
So yeah, that's Pharloom. It's a great video game world. Team Cherry did it again with the level design and the world design. What else do you want me to say about it? These guys are incredible at their job. But the question is, how did they handle what we all came here for? Wait, did we all come here for this, or is it just me? It's my great pleasure to introduce to you the boss, baby. Gee golly willikers, these bosses are... I mean this wholeheartedly when I say the best part of this game are the boss fights, to like an extreme extent. Whatever struggles and frustrations I had with the difficulty went out the window as soon as a main boss fight showed up. Now some of the mini bosses were a little meh, Morwing kiss my ass, but for the most part, fighting the bosses in Hollow Knight Silksong just gave me pure joy because most of them have this creativity to them that just makes it so much fun to engage with. You have fun getting your ass kicked, and oh brother, you will get your ass kicked. As I said earlier, every boss will now do 2 mask damage with every hit, so you're even more careful about your actions, and that puts you on edge the entire fight because now there's less room to mess up. But then you combine it with the ridiculously creative movesets, and you have something that I genuinely think is the best boss lineup of 2025, and that's saying something because Liza P. Overture came out this year. Let's highlight some, shall we? First up, your new rival, Lace. An early boss that proves that the hardest thing in life is indeed dealing with white women. She's fast, she has tricky tells, which took me a while to figure out, granted it was early in game. She has a parry that will fuck you up if you get caught in it, and she's also got whatever this is. A great boss to start off with that lets you know exactly what to expect. And of course, she gets away, so guess what that means. Next up, we got the 4th chorus. A big-ass bug machine. A classic 2D background boss whose theme goes way harder than it should. Beating the 4th chorus is simple. Avoid his punches, stay on the platforms, and dodge the falling rocks. Only 3 attacks shouldn't be that interesting, especially since the only thing you have to do is up attack the entire time, right? Well, the fun comes from the fact that you could be at any platform depending on where its punches come down, so the fight becomes a question of how you take advantage of the positioning that you have, and how do you handle the situations with your positioning. Like, if you only have a certain amount of platforms, how will you deal with the falling rocks? The 4th chorus should not have been a boss that slapped this much, but as soon as it was done, I was like, bro, this is the 3rd major boss, how is it this good already? But boys, it gets better. Because before you can enter the mighty citadel, the hierarchs have something special in mind. They need to test out anyone who seeks to make it to the capital. Violently, of course. Enter the last judge. A hulking big boy that's looking to pronounce you guilty. And I hate to break it to you, but most of the time he succeeds.
Oh, mother's tits.
It turns out that you can use a bell as a weapon. You just need to attach it to a string and sky's the limit. He can throw it and retract it, spin it around, dive at you with it, which is the moment you should unload on him. He gets into a second phase and then ignites it. Now that throwing bell explodes. Now that diving sets the floor on fire. And now the spinning attack sends out fire shockwaves, which took me way too long to figure out how to avoid. Oh, and now he has a dash that leaves delayed fire columns. Motherfucker, have mercy on my soul, you behemoth. I did not have a more fun time getting destroyed in Silksong than I did with the last judge. Up to this point, he was my favorite boss because of how damn fun he was to fight. But in the end, he wasn't my favorite boss. That honor goes to the Cogwork Dancers. Bro, do you know the moment where you fall in love with a boss the second you see their first attack? Yeah, that was me with the Cogwork Dancers. This is not a fight that's particularly hard, but it is the most unique and creative fight in the game. The dancers' attacks are set to the beat of their song, slashing in any particular direction, which is always shown in advance, which makes the first phase kinda easy. Oh shit, okay. But then once you hit one enough times, the next phase speeds up and gets a little harder, with the slashes becoming more fast-paced and giving you less time to react, until the third phase where the two stop moving in tandem and it becomes a double off rhythm attack, which is where the chaos starts. When all that's done and you kill one, dude, it's depressing watching the other one slow to a crawl, go for the middle attack, and remember he doesn't have his partner and he just drops. This is the best boss fight that I've faced in the game, like, hands down. I love everything about this fight. It's incredible. I could go into more, but like I always say, we'd be here all day, and I don't want to spoil most of them for you. I don't think I have anything else to say, except every time I got to a main boss fight, I was giddy. And that's how you know your bosses are damn good. So after a 7-year wait, Hollow Knight Silksong arrived and essentially did its part in kicking AAA's teeth in. While being a game that delivered on what we all wanted, we now have a true war in the video game industry between the small guys and the big. And the big boys are on the back foot right now, struggling every day. And every time somebody looks at Hollow Knight Silksong, they should not only see a great game, but the results of what happens when you make a great game that can capture people's hearts and minds, no matter what size you are. The first game was an all-timer. People caught wind, played it, enjoyed it, and all that developed into the hype and fervor that Silksong has, which has led to it being the GTA of indie games. Team Cherry is made up of less than 5 people, and look what they just did. If these guys can do it, you can too. Hollow Knight Silksong is an absolute triumph for the industry, and is now in a two-way battle for the best indie game this year. With who exactly? Well, that's a story for another video. There's no two ways about it. It was well worth the wait. Hollow Knight Silksong is an ironclad 9 out of 10.